Hi, everyone. Um, so we have a few things added to the agenda today, just because we thought it was going to be interesting to start at least with two updates. One about project and timeline, because there was there are upcoming events in the timeline of the project for releasing. So we want to have everyone just note these dates where we are backporting and where we are we'll get to that. And the second one is the team updates. We thought it makes sense to give just a general team update from Nimrod's team and Girish's team, so that each one would just mention current work, maybe blockers, and what's upcoming, I guess.
Yeah, and in general, right? Not just related to the cache, but in general, what is expected to merge in this week or maybe early next week, from all aspects, not just the caching project.
Right. From the entire team perspective. Yeah. Okay, so Nimrod, what do you think? You want to try going through project and your team, and then if Girish or somebody from the team will update, it will be good.
Sure.
So let's keep it around 10 minutes, I guess, for this entire thing, not so short, relatively, so we have time for reviewing.
Yeah, I don't think we need more. Hopefully, I will give you some change back. So just two updates on the project and branches and rebases. So I did a rebase of master into 5.6 today. The backport PRs have been merged about 2 hours ago. This one includes all the PRs on the caching that were merged up to now. I will do another rebase next week at the end of the working day on August 24th. And this will be the last rebase, which will be just taking everything from master and pushing it into 5.6. From that point, it will be a selective backport, cherry picking for specific commits. The idea would be to not take in new features, but to take only bugs that affect the current features that we are planning for this release. So that's regarding rebases, and there has been a talk on Slack. So whatever we want to push to be inside 5.6, we need to do it in the following day, so we'll be able to review and push. That's from the branches and project updates. Regarding the team, so we won't go over every little thing that everyone does, but just I think that two features or changes that we want to highlight in this meeting would be the Postgres update, which I will give Jenia a chance to talk about, and the secrets encryption, which was a part of the caching as well, not the MVP, but it is a part of the requirements for OCS, and it's nicely aligned, and Romy would talk a little bit about that. So Jenia, are you on the call? No, yes, you are on the call.
So 1 second.
Yeah, I'm on the call right now. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
All right, great.
1 second. Let the folks that just joined connect. 1 second. So Girish and Matthiu, can you hear us okay?
Yep, I can.
Okay, hi, welcome. So just to recap, we just went through, and I think it's relevant for you. So Nimrod, can you just repeat the last sentence for them? Because I think they saw it, but just for that they know where we are. Or I can do that. So we've set to do two updates. The project updates is about the timeline. So Nimrod was saying he did a rebase, taking all the functionality already merged to master to the 5.6 branch as a complete rebase, and another one like that is planned for next week, for the 24th, and that will be the functionality that will be inside this version. And other than this, we can only have selective, backporting for specific issues, or if there's like a major issue, I guess. So we should focus the dev preview functionality to be merged before that, so that if needed, it will only be issue fixing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That was the first update, and now we're going to the Nimrod's team update. So Jenia was just about to start on the first topic. Jenia?
All right, hi. All right, so the update regarding the Postgres. As you know, we are currently switching and going from MongoDB to using PostgreSQL in our backend. Which means that we, as a part of the mission, is to rewrite every logic that we have and make it work on top of Postgres, which means that we need to transfer from NoSQL database with key value database towards SQL database. So we chose Postgres, and we are using a JSON-B type in order to make it simpler to translate our database to SQL. And currently, the status is that we have several components in our system that we are rewriting. What we did by now is we have the system store component actively working. We have the majority of the MDStore component working. We also have several tests for both of those components. We've added transactions, which means in Mongo we used bulks, and in Postgres we will use transactions. So we added support for that as well. Added initializations for tables. Added our map reduces. We started rewriting them using PL Postgres SQL functions, and converting map reduces to use Postgres SQL functions. So I did rewrite a couple of, and I'm still working on the other map reduces in MDStore. I can deep dive and tell more about it, but I'm not sure about the scope that I need to go. So
I think we can keep it as an overview, and if there is an ask, we can do a specific session maybe.
All right, cool. So basically what we have dangling right now is we should consider all of we don't have any indexes right now. We don't have any connectivity, which means emitting reconnections and stuff like that. So we don't have a code that deploys the Postgres in our operator. I'm not even going towards clustering, replica sets, and sharding. We don't have
It's not part of the
it's not
first,
part of the feature. Yeah, it's not part of the feature, but it's something that we need to do in the future or think about it, right? So GridFS, which is our internal storage on top of MongoDB. We don't have any substitute for that in Postgres, and I'm not sure if that's part of the feature, but this is something that we also do not have. We need to rewrite the aggregate framework from Mongo to Postgres, something that we did not do. Implement several functions like distinct functions of Mongo and several other things. Implement errors and rollbacks of bulks, which we don't have. Also, we need to go across all of our stores, which are activity log store, bucket stat store, endpoint stat store, history data store, IO stat store, func store, and alerts log store, config file store. We need to handle the upgrade process and the migration process as well. and some other several things like custom options that Mongo supports and Postgres doesn't support on queries, and several little things. But this is like the main things that we have right now on our head and that we need to handle.
Okay.
If you think that I need to deep dive and go inside, to tell more
No.
exactly.
No, I mean, I don't think it's relevant to just generally deep dive anything at this point, but if there's any just general questions.
I have actually general questions. Is that it's going to replace Mongo as just one of deployment options? You can choose between Mongo and Postgres.
So you can
Right.
choose.
It's just an add-on option.
Yeah, it's an option. The way it's implemented is to be parallel to the Mongo support. So you can choose when we will ship OCS, it will be with Postgres. That's the reason we're doing it. But anyone else can use the second flag and just use the Mongo.
Okay, cool.
Right,
And
and
also,
it will be.
I'm sorry, but I forgot to mention that the node store is also a store that we need to handle. Our node store is something that is heavily used in Mongo, and we need to work on that as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's the summary I wanted just to give on that. I think what we did at some point, I don't remember when, but we wrapped these stores in so each one is wrapped in a class because it was at least seen as something we want to abstract. Of course, we didn't go pure in the sense that there is some leakage of the MongoDB API to the rest of the callers, but it is at least well defined in the sense that we know which queries we have on each store. It's not that we're bypassing that to achieve whatever we want, but we go through the store, we have an API for the store, and that's what we need to implement for the rest of the system to work. And some technical issues like IDs versus maybe calculated things that we did differently, I suppose. So that's that. And also one thing you didn't mention, I think, was that in Postgres, what we are using is we are pushing the information into a JSON-B data column, basically.
Yeah, I've started from it.
Sorry.
But okay. Maybe I didn't explain myself, but yeah, we have two columns. A column of ID and a column of JSON-B, and all of our each and every document from MongoDB is translated to a JSON-B object, and it applies to a JSON-B column. So every table in our Postgres SQL consists of two columns. One is the ID, and the second column is the JSON-B object.
Yeah, and I think this is not really how we are going to end up, because I think what happens is that when you start using SQL, you find other opportunities to optimize, and if you have the opportunity to use relational optimization, you might take that path as well. And in some other cases, we will still use the same. We can index the data inside the JSON-B structure as well. So indexes will still work, things like that. Operators will still work on like from queries. So there's good opportunity to use what we need. And
it was the task. You can look at it as two steps, right? The first one is to have all the functionality without any optimizations or changing the way we work to be better suited for SQL. Just have the functionality. And then the second one would be to go over and start optimizing, maybe changing certain queries or inserts or structures or whatever.
Okay, I want to go forward. We've taken enough time. Let's make a quick intro to this next topic.
Romy?
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. So basically, the encryption task is a task that Jenia started and handed over it to me. As an overview, I can say that today all sensitive data such as cloud pool credentials, chunk cipher keys, and accounting credentials was stored plain and unencrypted in the DB, which is a security exploit. When accessing the PVC of Mongo, it would allow access to all the secrets and through that to the data of the system and access to the cloud services. So our main goal for this task is to encrypt all sensitive data by using encryption keys tree. Basically, we would like to maintain a master key per level. And for example, we have the root master key, which is a global key stored in a Kubernetes secret and used to encrypt the system level keys. And also we have the system master keys. And the account master key and bucket master key, which are all stored in our DB, and the system master key used to encrypt the account and bucket level keys. And the account master key is used to encrypt the cloud credentials and the account S3 credentials. And the bucket master key will encrypt the chunks cipher keys of the bucket. Also, in this task, I'm supposed to handle the rotation of the keys and disabling of the master keys. And the status today is that I'm testing the current implementation. I'm trying to check that every sensitive data is encrypted and the keys tree was created as it was supposed to. And I'm doing I'm writing a unit test for rotation and disabling, and that's pretty much it.
Okay, and the result will be that we will have a master key for the system, and rotations would mean that we take a new key and start re-encrypting things internally, right?
Yeah.
Or generate also internally our keys, regenerate our keys as well.
Yes, then we will generate. We can rotate every key.
Yeah, every level.
Every level key.
Mm-hmm. Right, and the current direction is to keep it only with a secret, right? The master key.
The root key, yeah.
Yeah.
In a secret, we'll load it to noobaa-core, and by that we can handle every other key.
Yeah. Also, the other pods will load that. The endpoints will have that as well. Yeah. Okay. Any questions? I've also put the link to the design doc from the doc from our status doc, so you can go over that if it's relevant to what you're reviewing. But I don't think, do we have a PR already? No.
No, not already.
Not yet. Okay. Okay, great. Okay, so from Nimrod's team, I guess next week or like next meetings, we'll keep these updates on these projects and new projects that come in. And Matthiu, do you want to give a quick update on your team?
Yeah, I mean, I'll give a very quick update because I think we should move on to the review. But so basically, we are, I think, let's see, we're a week away, a little less than a week away from the 8/25 date. So I think we have probably 4 working days until that date. And so the remaining items that that we need to put in is the cache eviction, and there's also S3 operations, and then we will move on after So there are 3 PRs that are still open. So after those are merged, our next plan is to move to the metrics framework. And so perhaps we should sync up later on what exactly is needed from the metrics framework side to support Prometheus and things like that. But that would be our next work item after we are done with what is needed for the tech preview. So that's
which are these 3, right?
I'm sorry.
Which are these?
Yeah, exactly.
3 PRs,
Yeah. Thank you for merging that one yesterday. I know it was late, so that was very helpful. But yeah, so that's pretty much it. I think our biggest priority right now is to get that code in and resolve any potential, address any comments and resolve any potential issues that arise from that. So yeah, I think we should move on to the review itself.
Okay, great. So just to give my 2 cents here, I think these 2 are relatively easy. Will be in an easy process, so I wouldn't really worry. I mean, they will get merged, I'm pretty sure. The only thing we should focus on is that the eviction is looking good, and that we don't have any major questions about the way we decided to implement, right? So let's dive into that. Okay, so let me open up the PR. I'm gonna use my screen. Sanjeev, if you have any, if you want to switch, don't worry. But just for the convenience of it, I just want you to be able to start, going through the code now. And if you want to show something, then no problem. So I did post a couple of comments, which are, I think, and I also resolved the older ones from this PR, which were not relevant. And my current comments are not really big, but there's one another small one, but it's just something I wanted to note here as well, that when there's this function, delete empty object in map deleter, where we are essentially clearing up an object and metadata which is unneeded because all the parts are already removed. And so there's 2 things just to think about here. First of all, we don't really need this this operation in MDStore to actually load all the parts of the object. Certainly not if we might get here multiple times in the lifetime of an object, right, when it's cached. So we're going to end up loading that quite a few times. Am I correct here? Is that how this flow is being called? Is it being called to check also?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So I think, yeah. Do you see my comment then?
Yeah. So I just need to check if it has any parts. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would just recommend that as like lowering much of the overhead. So that was one notable thing I wanted you to see. The rest is pretty small, and I do have a couple of pending comments, I believe. When I'm going over and collecting them. So let's get into that. 1 second, it's not loading. Okay. So right, so that was just to keep terminology the same in this PR so that we use, I think evict would make sense. This one, yeah, it's small. It's not really important. Right here again, this is looking good. And if we take from the end as well, the tests I'm going to skip for a second. But MDStore right here is this. Right, so this delete part. So that's pretty clear. I was just surprised that we didn't have it, but we actually, it actually makes sense. We didn't have deletion of specific parts yet. We always had delete all parts of object, things like that. So no, I understand why we need to extend this API for that. case, right? So that makes sense. So I went over that. So now we're left with the meat of the process. I think here is also not much. Yeah. Okay. So right here we are starting from the worker, right? That's where we are.
Yeah.
Our process works, and this is just since we are not now focused just on multi-tiered buckets. I'll just rename it to something more, you know, like a candidate thing. And this is just a sort of a writing comment, not very important for the functional thing. But now let me ask something here. So I see that most in these conditions, you check for the number of tiers as a condition to looking up the next tier, right? So that if there is just one tier, if there's one tier where of course we know that there's no next tier ID, so we can skip this piece. But oh, so this just prints as well.
Yeah,
I see.
this is just printing.
Okay, so essentially this is just conditioning this next tier in the fact that we actually have it versus it's undefined, right? Yep. Okay. So this is looking simple. I do see that there's something. So oh, so that was pulled up. I see now.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So the selection of the tier here versus. So what? So what are we saying here? Are we? Is there no use for the chunks yet of the previous? We're just looking up the next tier here. I see. If not, we continue. Okay, I see. So basically, we just select the tier right here. That's good. Okay, pretty simple. Looking good. Now let's go to the builder, which accepts this call in our core. And the actual reason why this is being called and not processed locally was that we wanted to have a single owner in the system for making these updates, so that we can lock the chunk and not have multiple operations running on the same chunk for other cases. So whenever we actually need to change the state or make a change to the chunk based on tiers, what we do is call that API, and it will do that in a batch and do that for a bunch of chunks, so it would be efficient enough in terms of queries and things. But this is where it starts, and it's a class. It's sort of a how do you call that pattern of having a class that is a runnable thing, something, I don't know, like something like that. So it's a runnable class, right, that runs some run function here, right, something like that. Let me open up the foldings here. Okay, yeah, run, you see. So this is a runnable task, and this, whenever we actually have a call, we instantiate this wrapper class so that we have all the information in scope and just run it just for the sake of it. So now we need to collect, and through this we bring up a lot of information about these chunks already. So we know all the blocks for these chunks. I'm marking it right now, and all the parts and objects for these chunks. So we have we basically should be having all of the information about these chunks, not about their objects specifically. So I wouldn't know if a different object has other parts, right? Because I'm only loading the ones that I actually am trying to work on in terms of these chunks and what is referring them. Okay, let's see. And now we're going through how to check the case where we are evicting and we are adding chunks to deletion. Right. So one thing I want to make sure, so we are sending this flag only if we are in the, so I guess my general question would be, what happens if I do define a bucket with 2 tiers and it's a caching bucket? Just for the sake of of the discussion for a second, how do we actually think about it? So we have 2 tiers. So the first tier should still evict or rebuild its chunks to the second tier, right? But when the second tier is running and there's no next tier, only then it's when we are actually, or we can align the conditions differently, but only when we're taking checks from the second tier is when we're actually evicting them. So I guess
I'll have to add that logic in tier TTF. At the moment, it just checks if there's a single tier.
Yep.
Then it triggers the eviction.
Yeah, but I think it's right. So the only thing we're saying here would be if there's. So I think it's that, right?
Yeah.
If there's no next tier,
yeah,
then we are evicting, which is exactly what we wanted, right? So we still have all the normal, tier movements without sending this flag on, right?
Yeah.
Whenever we still have the next one available, but whenever we are evicting from the last one, which is this case, we are noting that we are willing to remove them as well, right? And we don't have a next tier ID. Okay. So let's just continue. I don't think there's much here, but so I think it's already covered, right, in the condition we saw before. And right here, if we send a true option here for evicting, we're adding all the chunks that are still existing and not deleted to these chunks to delete list, right? Right, and then calling this at the end of the process to both. So let's see, 1 second. So we should have here already delete chunks with the chunks to delete with a unique already, but yeah, and objects unique in the same manner, right? So you're going through objects unique, and for each one, right. No, so one thing here doesn't look good, so you have to return this one. Otherwise, it's not going to wait for it.
Oh, right.
But essentially, you could also, you could probably just call it for the sake of it, it's a simple as well. Like it's possible as well. Yeah. Okay. Otherwise, it's looking fine. It's pretty simple logic here. One thing is pretty hard to go over in this is to actually understand if we have the right information inside. But I think that would have to run as tests. So from review perspective, it looks like it's doing right. It's picking up all the chunks and deleting them. Now, the process right here, so something in between should be able to identify also the blocks to be deleted, right? So there's, or maybe it's delete chunks in the deleter code will also handle that. Because the thing is, we already loaded all the blocks. So I would just make sure that we are using the blocks that we already loaded in order to go and delete them versus going through reload again. But let's see that. That's in the deleter code, I guess, when we are going to delete these chunks. So that would be just delete chunks. Probably somewhere. Yeah, here it is. Yeah, so it's going on to delete the blocks as well, you see, but it is taking them from the previous query. I just want you to see that the way it's doing it is getting all chunk blocks from the chunks, and if we go into that, it's pulling them from within the chunk. Let me see if I can easily get to that piece of code here. Not sure if it's not far away from here. Oh, so it's coming from another place, sorry. So yeah, you borrowed from APIs types, yeah. This one. Yeah, I had a small comment, but in essence, it's just taking. Oh, so it's not this one. It's the chunk blocks. It's the existing one. 1 second. Yeah, you see, it just takes the ones that are inside the structure already. So that's fine. We're doing what we meant to do. So that was my concern, just to make sure that we're not, overloading our process with our database, sorry, with queries, which we already did. I guess that was. And if I collapse this again and go just to finalize the map builder here, I think we have. So I think we have all the pieces here, but then delete parts with the chunks to delete. Is that clear? Is that correct?
Yeah.
So delete parts, you're saying, will be taking a chunk ID or chunks, basically. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. Right. So in these cases, I would typically prefer the name to help with that. It's just confusing otherwise if you really meant to get chunks versus parts, because you're deleting parts. So okay, I think it's actually looking simpler to me now. So any other questions about this?
I actually have some questions about this tier TTF.
Yeah.
I tried to trigger an eviction. So if you go to that file and where we get the endpoint report, yeah, if you can do the full file. So run batch, can you scroll down? Right here, this report logic, where is it? You get usage report.
This one.
So essentially I ran by changing the Mongo size to about 5 megabytes or 10 megabytes. And I wrote like 10 objects with 1 megabyte each. But this report keeps returning me only one write.
Yeah.
So it's not returning me the correct counter. And there seems to be a latency between when these counters are updated and when the operation is done.
So yes, first of all, it's by design to have some, delay. It's not. We never aimed here to collect all the pending writes from the system, right? So what we're doing is collecting the information that was at least committed completely, and also since we so I don't recall completely, but maybe Jenia here can remind me, or Jackie, if this will get the information from the MD aggregation. Is that the case here?
I need to check. I cannot tell you live. I need to take a look. Just a moment.
It gets from database usage reports. But
Yeah, it looks like from the
it's from done work, not from the MDB aggregator.
yeah, it's usage reports. So
Yeah.
I wrote 3 objects, and I know they get written to the cache and to the hub, but the counter here is always returning me 1 object and 1 megabyte size.
Yeah. First of all, maybe this is more than a delay. We're not. I don't think we are sure right now. But to sort of explain what we did here was this. So I'll take a step back for a second. TTF was our attempt to say how much time do we expect if the current rate of writes will continue the same rate as it is right now, or in the recent, like in the last minute or so. How much time will it take until this tier will fill? Right. That was our sort of prediction here. So the counter that we wanted to get for that was the rate at which the bucket is sustaining writes, basically. See? So that was the metric that we wanted to use for our back pressure for the worker, right? Or how much work should we schedule for the worker? Now it might be that this is too laid back, and taking into account, and I'm not sure what we're seeing here since 1 hour. All right, so we're asking how many reports we have in the last hour and being aggregated, right? That's roughly what we're saying. Yeah. So we want to take a look at the average for an hour. That's roughly what we're saying, or not average, but aggregate for an hour, something like that. Sum of an hour worth of ingest to the tier. So
Guy, sorry for jumping in, but as I'm the last one to touch this part does not, it's actually only, if I remember correctly, and I'm looking at the code, refer only to usage, an actual usage that's coming from endpoints. So I don't know, how do you correlate it to tiers? I'm not sure.
Yeah, so the point is that it was like this. We are not yet in the context of a tier here. What we are doing here is, first we are evaluating how quickly this bucket is expected to at least getting the time to fill of the first tier, I think, right? That was I think that was the case here, which is the first tier in most cases, right? The only case where the tier for variety is not the first tier is if we have a tier which is doesn't have any resources or doesn't have any available resources. So cases where there are failures. But put that case aside for a second. The selected tier here will be the first one, and we are back pressuring the first tier in this case, right? We're trying to say how much time will it take for the current ingest to the bucket to fill up the first tier. Okay. And what might be happening here is that this piece of information is not, it's delayed. It's too much delayed, or it's not.
This one does not delay at all. This information is not delayed as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I ran my test about 35 minutes ago, so I'm seeing that counter is not getting updated at all. I still see.
Yeah, but actually you are asking here for the last hour with a time range of hour. You will not get anything until 2 hours will pass. Actually, 1 hour and 59 minutes. Yeah, it's exactly that. You need double the time of your time range in order to guarantee result, any kind of result. So if you're asking for 1 hour for the last hour, you will get always one result, which will be not the last hour, it will be the hour before that.
So can you suggest what will cover the current time as well, Rod?
Yes, I will just take it with a time range of 10 minutes or 5 minutes or even a minute and aggregate the result myself. This will give you, I'm not sure if we are going down to minutes, I need to check it, but if we are covering minutes and not only like 5 minutes or 10 minutes, you can ask with a time range of minutes, get 60 results, which are basically all the results that are not from the last minute, like 60 minutes before the last minute. And when you aggregate it yourself, you will get approximately the last hour. It's
Okay.
bucketing. Just think about like you bucket the timeline.
Yeah. So since until they look okay, but the time range is too big, right? It's covering hours, complete hours, right? I was saying if we will get down the time range, that will fix that.
Yeah, the sense until are just suggestion. They are rounded to the nearest time range. This is why you don't get a single result every time. Okay, so if you just do the same query, but with the time range of, I don't know, 10 minutes and do the aggregation afterward, it might.
Yeah, and then it
A
will
better
need
approximation. Yeah, it will be a better approximation.
It won't be just report 0. It will be like, I don't know how many.
6
but,
reports, 10 reports, whatever. Yeah.
6 reports that you aggregate, right?
Yes.
I see. So that seems like something that might help. Sanjeev, does that? So it will require some maybe offline question to Jackie or Oad, but I think this is a good pointer, right?
Okay. And I had one more question. I'll take a look at it and I'll just ask offline questions. I have one more question. In namespace cache, there is this limit on, I think it's how much bucket is filled before it just starts skipping.
Namespace cache?
Namespace cache. So upload object, namespace cache.
1 second.
This right here. So line 449. Bucket free space in bytes.
Mm-hmm.
So this should be okay. So there are two types of skipping we are doing. If upfront we check, and if there is no space in the bucket based on this counter, we just don't write the
object.
The object. Or if there is something in transit, then that gets caught in the map client because
Correct. Right, because I mean I can. So this one is 1 second. Yeah. So this one is when we discussed it, we said that what we wanted to make sure is that we don't start a process which we know is going to fail, which is a good practice. And but still, if we are, if this condition doesn't meet, and we still have multiple objects connected to multiple endpoints, so that we really don't want to serialize all of our endpoints to have like a single point where they calculate this, then we just want to let them start and then discover that the cache is full, and the worker will evacuate from the cache in parallel, and hopefully the cache will never actually be full, right? That's the intention. But we need to tweak these numbers so that we have proper cushion there.
So my question was just in the tier TTF code.
Yeah.
Why don't we just use this counter instead of aggregating usage reports for the names when we know it's a caching bucket?
So this one is delayed. That's this one is delayed for sure, right? It's not like the other one. At least is I don't know. Do you think they're different? Because this one is coming from our MD aggregator, right? this is like from read bucket and the bucket cache and all that. That's where we port bucket usage for user administration, things like that. So there, the delay is pretty acceptable. I mean, it's a minute, 2-minute delay. That's roughly where we typically aim, because we want pending things to end, and like after that amount of time at some, So the question is if the other one is really that different, or should we somehow use the same method? And that's a good question. Any thoughts, Jackie? Do you remember why we use specifically this reports versus something else?
I don't really remember, but I just think that this is like the actual data being written, and we wanted to like evaluate the amount of data that the user that's coming from the outside.
You're right. And the other point, you want something over time here, right? The other case where the second one doesn't provide us is some averaging, over time. Here, what we're saying is, give me some range of time, right? And then I'm averaging across it. The second interface, the API that we were looking for, was just showing you how much, to the best of the calculation and the information that's there and delayed, what is the current state, right? How much it is used. So this one is giving you a speed. The other one is giving you free space.
I would like to add something. This report is from the point of the client, which means even if you write the same object 10 times, you will get 10 times the size or the statistics, because it's bandwidth. It's not actually what is written. We might write it all. We might not write it all because these are the same blocks again and again and again.
But so we would write, but replace, yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, it doesn't talk about consumption. It doesn't talk about how it will be hard to predict from that how much of the tier will be filled.
No. So I think I agree with the first point that you said, but the second one is I somewhat don't agree, because the point is this: we are looking for usually for things that do not overwrite, first of all. So we should optimize for non-overwrite cases more than the overwrite cases. And the second thing is that what we were setting here for the calculation was speed, right? We wanted the speed factor of this bucket, the write speed, and the other metric doesn't really provide information about speed. If we wanted to collect speed in a usage sort of fashion, so based on usage metric versus the bandwidth metric, that will be an improvement. That I agree, right? So we will need to sample the usage and get the deltas of how much usage. So we'll have like I don't know, maybe a few points sampled, and then we can average between. But I think for the sake of what we're achieving right now, I think bandwidth is pretty equivalent. We might consider making this an improvement for usage. That's my thoughts.
Okay.
Okay. Any other things someone wants to mention? Saw something in the PRs, or just wants to say something? Feel free to interrupt. I think we should go ahead and just go over these comments, Sanjeev, and once we feel like the tests are stable enough, I think, I mean, from the code perspective, it looks pretty solid. We just need to make sure that this works okay with all this things we just discussed, right?
Yeah.
And for the rest of the folks on the call, I mean, I think what Matthiu was saying is that we really want all these three to merge on time. So if you can spare 10 minutes going over, asking whatever doesn't look natural to you, it would be good. The sooner the better, so we can complete this process. Okay.
Hey, Guy.
Yeah.
So from a dev preview perspective, is there anything that you would want us to do? I assume that we are not going to be doing any documentation, but if there is anything that we are missing or we don't know about, please do let us know so that we can plan for it.
Right. So I don't think it's a matter of dev preview per se, because you can do it at any later time as well. But I think it's important to us, like when we are saying that we have something working, to just have like a markdown doc, like a very simple wiki saying this is how you do it, right? And we started this, right? So we have it, but we just want it to work, right? We want maybe to get the next call and try to record the demo or something like that. Maybe next, like the second call after that, maybe like one call after that, sorry. So I think that will be the important thing for us to deliver, other than the code, like to show that this is the experience that works. And just,
yeah, if we can have a demo and record it, that would be nice.
Yeah, I think that's important. And then we can focus on seeing, what issues come up with other people trying the same, right? I think that's good. Yeah, I would really be. I think I would take the first demo and just try to replicate it myself. Like I would take my environment, replicate the demo, and try to show it to, the environment within Red Hat, and just go over that a little bit. So I think that will be the main tool we need to. Right, Nimrod, if there's anything else? I don't think.
No, there is no documentation or anything else that we need. Again, it's the preview, so there are no specific constraints. The ability to demo it is nice just for us and just, to show, but even that is not needed.
It's also probably, I mean, the ability to demo and just have even a very dev-oriented documentation is that it will be transferable to other people as well, right? There are people who are asking me, when can we try? So I think it just needs to be something we can share easily, like a wiki page and a recorded demo that, just somebody could follow along and replicate the same result.
Yeah, sure, I agree. Yeah,
I think that's the only thing we should aim for, right?
Yeah, I'm with you.
Okay.
I know it's a little bit late. I will just give a pointer here regarding what we talked before, and you search for a better metric. We also have the IO stats store, which basically saves information over time about reads and writes to resources and namespace resources. I think this you can isolate specifically the tier and ask how much is written on the tier over time. So just a pointer, you might look there, maybe it's a better fit.
But a resource is currently at least shared, but can be shared by multiple buckets, and you don't have the notion of how much a bucket is filling.
I'm just because everything here is just some kind of estimation, and in the namespace use case, I'm not sure that the namespace resource will be shared. I'm not sure about the use case and how they're going to use it.
Not the namespace, but the tiering
one. The tier, okay, the cache,
storage.
I understand. Yeah, storage.
By the way,
might
we
be
do
a better
have.
fit. It might not. I'm not sure.
So, Oad, it will be great if you can just write one sentence with a link to where to find this, so that anybody who actually wants to look at it can actually take a look. either us here, or when we try to optimize later on. So maybe put it in our Slack or something like that, then we can go from there.
Okay, I'll do that.
Thanks. And okay, so I'm seeing people drop, and I think time is done. So let's wrap up. I will use Slack to update on the progress for for the work on the PRs, and we will meet. I hope Monday we have a quick sync, so that will be the next call. That's it. Have a nice day, and we'll sync soon.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.